Well, Monsieur Bertuccio, I will say your understanding of my taste in houses does quite well.
Ah, but Your Excellency is mistaken. I did not pick this house.
Huh. That is correct. I do recollect that I had decided to purchase this address on a whim, hearing that the environs were good.
If Your Excellency would care for me to make a different purchase, I would be more than happy and able.
No. As I said, I do like this house. You know I do not like to overwork my servants.
Sir is very kind. But do you not think the air of this house has one of melancholy?
I do not. What could have put the idea into your head? Ah, where does this staircase lead?
To the garden, Excellency.
And has the garden been arranged?
I do not know, Your Excellency. You gave your instructions to the gardener. I have not exited that way yet.
You have been here before me to arrange my home for me, and have not visited the garden.
I have not.
Well, let us go.
You wish me to visit the garden with Your Excellency?
Really, Bertuccio? I thought you were made of sterner stuff. You really seem disturbed by the idea of visiting my garden. You know I do not like to have my orders disobeyed. We will visit my garden. Well, it seems that no change has been made to the garden at all.
No, Monsieur, it is impossible. I can go no further.
What does this mean?
Your Excellency, this is not natural. That having a house to purchase, you purchase it at exactly number 28 Champs-Élysées. Oh, why did I not tell you all? I'm sure you would not have forced me to come. I had hoped your house would have been some other than this. Move away, I entreat you. You are exactly on the spot.
What spot?
Where he fell, where the child was buried.
The Abbé Busoni then told me an untruth when after his journey in France 10 years ago he sent you to me. Well, I shall write to the Abbé. I shall hold him responsible for his protégé's misconduct. Only I warn you that when I reside in a country I conform to all its codes, and I have no wish to put myself within the compass of the French laws for your sake.
Oh, do not do that, Excellency. Did not the Abbé Busoni, who heard my confession at the prison of Nîmes, tell you that I had a heavy burden upon my conscience?
Yes. But as he said you would make an excellent steward, I concluded you had stolen, no more.
Oh, Your Excellency, it was simple vengeance, nothing more.
Vengeance, I can understand. But I do not understand what it is that excites you in this manner.
But, Monsieur, it is very natural since it was in this house that my vengeance was accomplished.
What? My house?
Oh, Your Excellency, it was not yours then.
What had you to revenge on the Marquis de Saint-Méran?
Oh, it was not on him, Monsieur, it was another. Monsieur, it is fatality. I am sure. First, you purchase a house where I have committed an assassination. You descend to the garden by the same staircase as he did. You stop at the spot where he received the blow, and 2 paces farther is the grave where he had just buried his child. This is not chance, it is fatality.
Come, collect yourself and tell me all.
Oh, Your Excellency, I have only told it once, and that was to the Abbé Busoni.
If you cannot tell me also, then return to the Abbé. I thought you an excellent steward, but I see you have other strings to your bow. I will not have the law chasing after my servants without knowing why. You are no longer in my service, Monsieur Bertuccio.
Oh, Your Excellency, Your Excellency! If that is the only reason I cannot remain in your service, I will tell all. Sir, to put it simply, my brother was a soldier in the army of Napoleon. Upon the overthrowing of the emperor for that fateful second time, he was returning home when he was murdered.
Where was this?
Outside of Nîmes. I went to the king's attorney, a newly appointed man who was said to have been one of the first to warn the king of the emperor's return. As you can imagine, the man was a royalist. Upon learning my brother had been a soldier in the emperor's army, he refused to search for the murderers. I entreated with him, and he simply said that even if my brother were not at fault in the matter, as he doubted the man was not, the murderers would be nearly impossible to find in the press of men returning from war. My words could not soften him. And therefore, as I told him, I called the vendetta on him.
You called the vendetta. Did he understand what this meant?
He grew pale at my words, so he may have done so. But to be sure he understood me, I told him that when next we met, I would kill him. But before he recovered from his surprise, I ran. For the next 3 months, I followed him, and he did not take a step out of doors without me knowing where he went.
As this is the same diligence you have employed in my service, I cannot fault it.
I followed him, even to Paris, to this house. When he arrived, there was a woman waiting for him. and I could see that ere long she would be a mother. I nearly killed the attorney that night as he walked in this garden, but not having planned my escape, I bided my time until I could explore the neighborhood. 3 days later, I had my second chance, and having familiarized myself, I took it. I had hidden in those trees as dusk fell, and was resolved that night to leap on him as he walked in the garden. When he finally appeared, he carried a spade and a box, and I waited to see what this meant. He dug a hole, placed the box in it, and as he was stamping the ground to remove the traces of his occupation, I leapt out of the trees, ran at him, and stabbed him with my knife, exclaiming, "I am Giovanni Bertuccio, your death for my brothers!" I do not know if he heard those words. He fell without a cry. For my brother's widow, I dug up the box, then filled in the hole so it might not be known I had done so. I left again over the wall and found a secluded corner to see what treasure the man had tried to hide. But, Excellency, the treasure was not money. It was a child. The babe looked as though it were dead, near purple with violet-colored hands, but as I had been an assistant at the hospitals in Bastia before coming to France, I did what I had seen doctors do in similar cases, and by a quarter of an hour it was crying feebly. My cry joined it, but it was one of joy. I knew that God had not cursed me, since he permitted me to save a life in exchange for the life I had taken away.
What did you do with the child? It is difficult when making an escape to bring an infant with you.
Your Excellency, I did not for a moment think of keeping it. There was a nearby orphanage, and there I went, telling them that I had found it abandoned on the roadside. The blood that covered me might have come from the child as much as anything. I left the babe, but I tore off and took half the cloth it was wrapped in, as a souvenir for the wife of my brother. The other half, with a letter H embroidered on it, I left, in case the mother should seek for the child.
Did you ever learn the name of this woman?
No, Your Excellency.
And what was the name of the attorney?
The man I killed was named Villefort.
This child. The child of the attorney Villefort and this mysterious woman. Did you ever learn what became of it?
Ah, but Your Excellency, I raised this child nearly as my own.
No, Monsieur Bertucci. You distinctly said you left it at the orphanage. Do you change your story with me?
No. I brought the half of its napkin to my brother's widow, who became enamored of the story, and as soon as I left after to attend a matter of transportation I had engaged in...
Smuggling, you mean?
I know Your Excellency often aids smugglers, so I have no fear of confirming the notion. My brother's wife, while I was gone, brought the napkin to Paris, and brought the child home herself.
A noble thing, that seems.
I wish she had not. She named the child Benedetto, but a blessing he never was to us past his infancy. I think it was fatality that the son of him who I murdered made our life so hard. I had to often go on journeys like the one Your Excellency commented on, and every time I returned, little Benedetto grew not only in size, as all children do, but also in cunning and wildness. It is true that the indulgence of his foster mother encouraged him. Benedetto would steal the fruit from the neighbor's tree rather than eat from my own. We never knew who revealed the fatal secret, that she was not his mother and I not his father. It was after that he truly became wild. By the time he was 12, he chose his companions from those who were nearly 20, the worst characters in the neighborhood, and had already been caught and threatened with prosecution 3 times. It was around then that, while returning home from one of my journeys, I found it necessary to run aground a while, to escape both the coming storm and the men who followed me. I stopped at an inn on the road near our town, with whom men of my profession had an arrangement, a small opening to a storeroom beneath one of the upstairs rooms. If the inn had no visitors, we would purchase supplies from this hidden location.
And had the inn any patrons at that time?
There was only one. When I arrived, a jeweler was present, negotiating with Caderousse and his wife.
Caderousse was then the name of this innkeeper. What were they negotiating?
Ah, Excellency, they were haggling over a diamond, worth somewhere between, if the two sides could be believed, 40 or 50,000 francs. Caderousse told how an Abbe Busoni had brought him the stone as an inheritance. I am glad I noticed the name and remembered it.
Why is that?
Because, sir, the storm had cut up to me while they were haggling, and the jeweler was obliged to stay the night. As he turned in, I was about to creep out to speak to Caderousse when I heard him and his wife arguing, quietly but animatedly. So instead, I curled up to sleep the storm out. I awakened to thunder, both of the storm and above my head, and I curled terrified in my secret room. Soon I heard footsteps run down the stairs and peered out as Caderousse, carrying the jeweler's baggage and wearing a heavy coat, dashed out into the midnight storm. All was quiet, but I felt the dripping of what seemed to be rain on my head from the ceiling, and a terrible thought occurred to me. I ran out of my cubby, up the stairs, and saw through the doorway of the jeweler's room the wife of Caderousse, shot twice by the jeweler, yet still lying with her fingers around the handle of the knife in the jeweler's chest. I sat down on the steps in horror, and that's how the guards who had been chasing me found me, covered in the blood that had fallen on me through the ceiling of my hiding place.
What a hard spot to be in.
They held me, and I dare say I would have been executed, but one or another of my jailers believed me enough to seek out the Abbe Busoni, who was the only person who could corroborate my story in any way. It was 2 months before your dear friend the Abbe was found. It was he who corroborated my story, who took my confession in the case my release could not be secured, and who gave me the letter of introduction to your excellency. During the time of my journey in captivity, my brother's wife had died, and Benedetto had disappeared. And so I presented myself to you, and have been with you these 9 years, until this day of fatality, when you set me in this place, which lies so heavy on my thoughts and my conscience. At this moment, a shudder passes over me, as I reflect the possibility I am now standing on the very grave in which lies Monsieur de Villefort.
Everything is possible, even that the procureur be not dead. You have done right to share this story with me, as it will prevent me from forming erroneous opinions of you in the future. As for Benedetto, your foster son, have you never made any effort to trace what has become of him?
No. And I thank God I have never heard his name mentioned by any person. I am less sorry than I should be to think it, but I believe him to be dead.
Do not think so, Bertuccio. The wicked are not so easily disposed of, for God seems to have them under special care to make them instruments of his vengeance.